welcome back. We are starting a new project. This one I've had for a while and been wanting to do, and don't know why I never really got around to it, but kind of glad I kind of waited because I went and got some extra things for it. Not the most accurate model, but we can make it do. I heard a lot about the seams for these dishes, so we'll see what we can do there. And I got from HDA ModelWorks, I went and got the little shuttle bay area. So we're going to have to cut that door out, and you'll be able to see in there. And then there's a couple shuttles that you can have in there. I might even have one come out flying around, or I might even see if I can find a file on those. I'm sure there's a file on little old TOS style. I'm not sure what they call that particular shuttle. And then it does come with a little tiny Enterprise, or at least a Constitution class. I think it's actually, I don't think it has any decals. But then that comes with the walls and the ceiling and the floor are clear, so you'll have to paint those. But then you can actually just, and he gives you the masks with that kit, especially for like the ceiling lights and stuff like that. You can just hit with the mask and then do your light blocking in your painting. And I did get the masks for these windows on these cones. Just figured it would be easier. I thought about just doing it and just scraping, but I don't feel like scraping forever, and it wasn't that bad of a price for those masks. I got to start getting my vinyl cutter up and running and making masks. And then also, HDA ModelWorks provides a cargo pod, like you've seen on the original, that sticks out the end here. I think it was full of grain for the tribbles got into. You can also purchase that silo from HDA ModelWorks, but I actually went and sketched my own up. So let's open this up because it's a very simple design, and I figured let me give it give it a try. So here's the dome part, and then I have a hole there for a flashing beacon. And here's the body. And then there's the stem, which I made long enough, and it's hollow. Just got a brim on it yet. And that will attach, to that, and then we'll cut it to what we need it to be. And then what I also did is I made a little disc, because since it's going to have a flasher down here, and I think I'm going to build this one instead of as the cargo. I think I'm going to do it as another habitat, so it can have windows on this. So that's why I painted it clear, so it'll be able to glow. But the flashing light up here, I don't want that to flash down in here, so I made a little disc that I can sit in there that'll light block, and then it has a hole for the wires to go through, and then it'll light block any light from coming down. And like I said, it's just really a cylinder with a big dome on one end and a more shallow, and then there's a little trench, kind of like the Death Star. It's got a little trench right there, and they all have this, so I can actually use this for any. Because I was also thinking maybe making a cargo one and then a habitat one on the outside, because that's what I think they do. They stack them. They're just extra cargo things, and they actually would stack them. You can actually stack a bunch of them one behind the other. But I know most people are doing probably doing the cargo, and then they have power supply ones that get extra power. I'm going to do the habitat because I'm hoping that I have some extra window masks from these, and I can put them on the side of that and get them to glow. But it's, you know, fairly simple kit. There's your main saucer area. And then this is for helping all these arms connect. Yeah, these go together like that. And then this might be the lower part of that. So that's that mid where all the branches come off. Oh no, that's the hanger. So we gotta figure out how to chop this door out. But we gotta do stuff with the floor to make sure it all's level. So this brim here is level with the floor. And like I said, it's just repeat parts of these three smaller arms. There's another one, and here's another one. And then here's the clear parts. Your big cone and your three little ones. And then your base. And then these have some extra little things. What is that? That's something maybe to lock these? Yeah. I remember seeing holes in those. That's something to lock those in. But this is the little Enterprise. There's your nacelles. There's your upper saucer. Boy, that bridge is tall. And there's your engineering deck. And this is supposed to be a little cone because you can set it alongside it. But I think I might run a wire to the so it looks like it's floating out in space. So that's basically it. So, let me show you the parts from HDA ModelWorks. These are great. And there's your shuttle bay. This looks like these are in a guitar pick box. Whoop. These are your masks for your ceiling. There's what, 6 of them. And I believe this is the floor, which we'll have to take it off its supports. And there's your ceiling. Now I'll have to see how these lay, the decals lay on it. I don't know if they go on the sides. But then I got some decals for the floor and all those other decals for the doors, back wall, side wall. You got some windows. Because you're using a clear part, you could be able to actually scrape those. Or I make little paint masks for those as well. And here's our 2 little old school Galileo style shuttles. They're going to be way too small to see. There's those 2. And then, yeah, these are all the little, which will just be a bunch of little, same pry paper as that, but a bunch of little, little squares. Actually, it should be different size ones per cone. I think that's how it is because it's got cones and the windows get smaller as they get to the top point. I bet you that's how it is. And there's your little square ones that I can use in other areas. These are the only ones. I guess you can get all of them out of this. I don't know if this has any instructions to it. Yeah, he has a demonstration. Oh, Jason Model Shop. Yeah, I like his videos. So I was watching a little bit of that already. There's 2 sets. If you're going to sand away the ridges on the clear parts, because the clear parts have actual like window frames. See how these have a window frame? You can actually sand that away, and in that case, you want to use the bigger masks because now you don't have that window frame, so you can. But if you're going to leave it like this, you want to use these smaller ones. So that's the key. And these are your just normal square ones, like I said. We'll use it on the habitat, and maybe we'll use some in here instead of. Although they're showing these windows a little smaller. Maybe instead of a double. It's like 2 little windows would equal one of these little masks. But yeah, there's the window masks. So we got plenty of those to use on the habitat pod. It'd be neat to get a few windows on the lower. I've seen pictures on the lower hangar where the store is here, where there's some windows on that for the outside. I'm sure that plastic is thin enough to glow. Oh yeah, they would be dim, but it's feasible. You'd have to blast it with a lot of light, that's for sure. Okay, so that's neat. So that's different, and these were very nicely priced. So I suggest picking these up if you have this kit, especially the shuttle bay. That, and if you want to order this from him as well. Any little thing to make this bring this into a more accurate model. And then as far as lighting, we're going to have, of course, all these cones will be lit. And then right here, you're supposed to just put a clear part. Oh, that's great. That it's off to one side, so it's kind of up. So when this closes, so we can, even before I seal all this up, I can have a whole. Well, what I'm going to do is drill just a 3 millimeter bulb there, and then I'm going to have those flash like strobes or like nav lights, even though they're not real nav lights. But they'll correspond with the extension color. Because I think what we have is a yellow, from my best guess of everything I've seen, and there's this place that did research on the actual original model that's actually missing. This, I think, stays in blue. And then it has yellow, red, and green. I've seen a lot, like I think even this kit itself. Yeah, they do the tower in blue and then one of the smaller ones in blue. I've seen that a lot, but that doesn't make sense because really the colors are to mark which one of these you're going to. So if you want to go to blue, say pod, I don't know what they're calling these, I think pods, say pod blue, deck 13. So you know you got to go to the blue pod, then go to deck 13. And or whatever, this would be blue. Or red or yellow. So you know where to go. So they're each color coded. So we'll do the lights like that. I'm going to use warm lighting to simulate the old grain and wheat bulbs that they used back in the 60s. I think it looks more correct than to go with, cool white LEDs. When the original kits, they were actually using incandescent, probably grain bulbs, old Christmas tree bulbs, basically. So, like even the original Toss Enterprise, I went with warm white to give it the right feel. So, very cool. I'm excited. Moving off to something in the Star Trek world, and then we'll get back to probably doing more Star Wars. I got a couple 3D prints that I want to actually get built. So I think the thing to do, where's the instructions? To really get started They're telling you to start with that little tiny Enterprise. Nope. Well, they say you can get this main section together and start doing these little arms. There's not a whole lot of steps. 5. This is it. One sheet of paper. But it's so repetitive. You got 3 of the same thing going on, and then, you know, 3 different little discs in the center. But one main one's pretty much doing what these are. Um, yeah, so I'm going to have these out here flash like nabs. So all 3 of them will flash like nabs. And since it's a red, green, and a yellow, I'll have red, green, and a yellow light on them. Then this is going to get glowing for window lights. Now, the beacon on top, I'm not sure. I was thinking about doing, flashers. And it probably should, because all it is just a little wire running. And what I could do is have one flasher control the other 2 so that they flash at the same time. I don't need a board. The nav lights, I'll get a board for it because I don't have a. That way I can adjust the speed. Well, what I was thinking about, I was hoping to hook all of them together and then start running wire through. But I guess I could do that on the top. Because that's where all the wire is really going to be, because there's going to be one going up in here. But with the beacons, also, I was thinking, if I just do them not flashing, I can just stick a bulb up in here and glow that. And then hopefully it'll light the tops of those, which I think it will. But then it's like I would like the beacons to actually be in a cool white. And then the windows, well, we might have to compromise. And this be a warm white as well with the windows. I think that's what we're going to do. I've seen, some people even just take a fiber optic up, but I think we can just paint leave a little bit of the clear there because we got to paint the color. Well, the rest will be a hull color minus whatever windows we open up. And then you come down to the first row of windows and you paint that the color of the pod. I don't know if those flashed in the original or if they were steady on. I would like to go look. I think they were probably steady on. We're gonna have a flasher in this pod. We'll make that one flash. That can be a single bulb on its own. And then the nav will be the only thing that needs a board. And I don't know if I put that board right in here. And then I can run wires here, drill a hole for that, drill a hole for that, and start getting those laid out. And then start figuring out this guy. We're gonna have to bring wires up for the pod, for the cargo habitat pod. It's just gonna have one light in it. Well, 2. A flasher and this one light glow in this whole thing. I haven't figured out what I want to use. I don't know if I can get an LED strip down there. Or I make a holder and have a 5 mil blasting up. So I've been going through and putting bulbs in all these pod halves. Got the beacon in, drilled a hole. There's a little round part where you're supposed to glue a little clear piece right there. So I drilled a hole instead, and I'll just keep those clear pieces for something else. Because I'm just going to use the lens from the LED. Looks perfect. And then I put so each one I put the corresponding color. Actually, that goes there. This is the red one, so then I marked them so I know which one's what. So, and then I also put a warm white to give it that old um, grain and wheat bulb 60s look. So that's pretty much doing the same on all three of the outer pods. It's just adding that light and that. And I'm not going to add a beacon. I don't know if it really even has a flashing one on the top. So I'm going to use this. Like I said, it should light the top of those cones as well. And we'll go inside the cones, and actually I'm going to scrape, take a little Scotch-Brite and scuff it so it grabs the light a little better too. So that's that. And then on the main pod, I got the warm white in up there, and I need to clean some of the super glue off of here because it just kept running out. Like, good thing about super glue is it's brittle, so you can pop it off the glass. There we go. Let's see if it looks a little cleaner. Yeah. Just don't want it. Now I used a 5 mil on these and 3 mils on the little guys. But see, then that warm white, if you can see it, you know, it's going to have much more of that old school look. And then on the back here, and whatever you call this, where the pod, the extra containers can attach to, I drilled a hole to get the wires through. And the only thing that really has to go in there is power. Because we're going to have a little flasher, which I think I'll use that a little SMD flasher. And that I can use a cool white because it's an actual indicating light. So that's all ready. That's really all that has to be done electronically as far as lighting. And then we got the light, which we're going to do the habitat one instead of a grain cargo or a cargo pod. I guess those are probably better to call pods. These, I think they do have a distinct name to them. But this site here, Space Station TOS profile cutaway and deck plan, it gives you like whole diagrams on everything and history, you know, how they changed it from the originals to the enhanced effects, where pretty much all the starship and planet cuts are all digital now. So they talk about the only two scenes that you see this in, and they actually took it out. Well, Troubles and Tribbles, you see it for sure. And then I guess in a Deep Space Nine, they do the Trials of Tribulon, Tributations, whatever, which I think that's the one where they go back and you see the old scenes from TOS. They changed it a little bit there. Yeah, it says, but there are differences. Some small markings and other small details from the model were used for these drawings. But it has all kinds of like little views. You got sheet 1, which is a top view. Sheet 2 is a bottom view. Like here's your top view of the space station. And then here they actually show pictures of the original filming model. And it's spun so you can see different sides of it. And that's where I came up with, you know, you got the red, green, and yellow. And then the main one has a blue coloring. And they talk about that that's really just to memorize their deck colors, you know, area codes. So if you want to go to something that's over here and it's on red 15, you come over here to the red one and go up to deck 15. Then they have the bottom, they got front, rear views, all kinds of different starboard port view. And then you got cutaways, which show you all the deckings, and there's the little pods that you can attach onto it right there, and it shows its deckings, and they label what they are. It's just saying layout for yellow arm decks, which would be this one. But the other cool thing I like about this is it goes through all the little different cargo pods. There's the cargo one you see in the original series, and then they have a ship power supply one, and then they have a habitat one. And I guess these can have feet. You got a fuel, a colony power supply, and a medical. It's pretty much these with feet. Or these do have feet, and they come out so they can sit down. And then it talks about how they would transport them. There's a ship like that can transport them. So that's neat. So that gives you, a diagram on. There's the habitat one. I'm going to see if I can find a little. That's a little like dish there that I'll put on it. Even the medical one has windows, and then you put a little red cross on it. But let's get back to doing some of these wiring. So last night I went through and at least put the bulbs in. I put the bulb in that and drilled that hole out to fish the wire into the pod. I don't think I'm going to drill a big hole and I think I'm going to have it actually attach to the side. I'm not sure. Whatever I think would feel the strongest. I mean, the part's not heavy, so. And if I epoxy it, I think it'd just be easier to do that. That way I can get it lined up. And especially where the center of this is in two pieces, where we got to glue this together. I had to squeeze it together and then drill a hole. But this can be a little off because it only needs a small hole because, like I said, the only thing that's going to go in there is a flasher, which can take normal power because it's a self flasher. Oh, and that's it. No, we'll stick up. That's right. We're going to glow that one. We're not doing the cargo. I keep forgetting we're doing the habitat, so I want the whole thing to glow. But these are great. They're just simple flashboards that you can build. I used to buy light kits from this guy. What was this? Gary Hughes, I want to say. And I love his light kits because they were simple, and, very well priced. Gave you everything. I didn't have to sit there and figure out or buy wire. It came with wire. It came with light bulbs. It came with everything, and they're great. And then he would give you these as well that you had to solder together, but it's very simple. Heck, these here even tell you right on the board what's going where. And it helps you learn a little bit about circuit board wiring, but you can get them really cheap where you actually have to put them together. This one even gives you 2 LEDs. Now, I don't know if these are variables. I think these are just straight up flashboards. I don't see a potentiometer in there. Then there's these. These are pretty much, and I think this is the same thing. Just packaged different. Yeah. I buy these for mainly like nav lights, but you can speed it up so you can have it'll go to where it's almost the bulb stays on. But what these are, why it acts as a flash, is it's actually, these are for model railroads. The little street signs that have the 2 lights that go ding, 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 ding. For the purpose of model railroads, you might want it to control a whole bunch of these street signs, and that way you can hook up as many as you really want at that point, because if they're taking 9 volts, you just run 9 volts in, it sends 9 volts back out, but just in that flashing. Where some things that are resisted already, they're resisted for a certain amount of draw. So that's another reason why I like these, because if I want 15 running off of one board, I can, because each one has its own resistor stepping the power down. This is sending the power out equally, just like normal. So this is probably what I'll need, because in order to, these are always too fast, so I have to slow this one pretty much all the way down to get that nice nav light kind of pulse. And then I usually use one of these for the white flashers. So these are my nav lights, and these are my flash boards. That's what it is. So it gives you 3 attachments here, and then you put. So if you have one of those street lights, actually, because it has two bulbs, it'll give you two negatives and a single positive. And the single positive must be going inside the light and feeding both positive sides of each one of those bulbs. And then what this is doing is it's breaking the negative. So when it connects the negative on this, and it's switching between them, and depending on how fast you set this, is how fast it switches between them. So that's right. The negatives do have to come back here. These are really cheap. I can't remember because I bought these so a while back and bought a bunch of them. If you're just doing basic, lighting, I suggest you go that way. If you're looking for more remote control, which is great, I love Tenant Control stuff. Tenant Control has a simple board too that I want to see if he's still selling. That, especially for enterprises and for Star Trek stuff, it gives you navs and flashers, and it gives you different. You have jumpers, and depending on where you place the jumper, is how. I think it's more on the flash side. It gives you different flashes. So if you're doing like an old TOS enterprise, you can set it one way where they just, the flashers having decent flash and the nabs. But if you're doing like a JJ prize where it has a double on the flash, it can give you that. Or if you want it faster, so that's cool. And I want to order a bunch of those because I still have a lot of Star Trek. And you can use it for any other ship that you want to have nav and flashers, navigation lights. Yeah, and like I said, I think you got 3 different options on how things flash just by moving a jumper. And I think you don't have to solder. I think it's just one of those, where you lift the thing, if I believe. I know it was on Boyd's channel, TrekWorks, and I think Lou on Aztec Dummy talks about it too. I think they're only like $15, which is cheap, and his stuff is so high quality. I have some of his stuff, my refit. I have the Tenant Controls for the deflector dish and the impulse crystal, and I already put the back part on, so I couldn't get the impulse because I believe that also comes with the ability to, when you flip over to impulse and it goes to the amber color, your impulse engines only come on and your warp engines shut off, and then vice versa. So those are great. If you're doing stuff like that, Tenant Controls is your guy, and all his stuff is extremely high quality. And or if you want sounds and stuff, yeah, I would recommend Tenant Controls. That's the guy that's making really good control boards. But if you just want something simple and basic, or you're on a budget like me, and I like electronics, so I don't mind having to solder them. It's, like I said, it's simple. You don't pay for somebody else doing it, then that's the way to go. But what I do is I'll just run a red out that positive and then loop all my lights that I want to flash onto that and put separate resistors at each light, just like I'm running normal lights, but then bring that negative back to either L1 or L2. It doesn't matter if it's just doing one thing. If you're not flicking between 2 lights. I also used it for other things as well, effects. But if it's made really to flick two lights, I use either L1 or L2. It don't matter. It's just flicking between those two. But it'll still give you your regular. If you just use L1 and then the positive, you'll get the flash because you don't have anything connected to the other side. You could run a whole nother double chain of flashers, but they'll flash on the opposite always. But anyway, I'm rambling. So that was good that I looked at that. I forgot those are like that. So we do need to run 2 negatives in here. I guess for the nav lights, I'll run a totally different color code. We'll do the red and the black, red for the positive and the black for the negative for the regular on lights. And then we'll use the blue and the yellow for the positive and negative of the nav lights. And that way, when I'm tying things together, I know that blue negative is the blue is a negative for the switchboard or the flashboard. So that's what we'll do. Now that we have a plan, I can actually start getting stubbies out. Because what I'll do is I'll just get stubs out here. Yeah, I can do that, right? Even with the way that is. Look up the diagram, it's pretty easier. Yeah, so if I have a yellow and a blue and a black and a red, 4 wires coming out of here, they can all get junctioned here. Now, I like how those are. Then we gotta bend these down. And in this case, I don't even have to worry about cutting them. I'm just gonna straight up leave them the way they are. Because none of them are in any danger of none of them are any danger of touching anything. The red and the black will go boom, and then the blue and yellow will just go right there. That's it. We do have to pay attention. I don't know if the yellow and the green are probably going to need different resistors than the white. So the yellows are 2 to 2.2, and so that's a 2. The red's probably definitely a 2. Blues are still in the 3s, but we're looking for green. Green, I think, is below. Green is a 3 to 3.2. Most of these lights are 3.2 or 2 to 2.2. Red, I know for sure. Yellow also is a 2.2. This is a great one. It's called LED Calculator Pro. And it's great. You give your forward voltage. The street will go off the warm white, which is 4 volts. Or 3 volts, I'm sorry. I just go off 3 because 3.2 is not going to make any difference. They're in the 20 milliamps, all of them. And my current is going to be 9 volts. And then you can change your configuration. So here we go. We're going to have the resistor, then the LED diode, and then that's it. So it's LEDs in series, 1, LED in parallel series. I can see if you switch to 2. But it's going to be like that, but multiples. Actually, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, technically. You want to get technical. That's just how many bulbs you're going to run off the same single power supply, but it's going to just give you a Y off the power and then reconnect all the negatives. That's, but each bulb gets a resistor because you're not running in. Now if you go to like 2, that means there's 2 bulbs in each series of 3. So you got 3 series, parallel series, and then that's how many bulbs are in that series. There's 2, there's 3, 5, and it'll give you the value of the resistor for the control 5. But we are 1 and 1. Well, I mean 1 and technically 3. But the value of the resistor is going to be the same, so it doesn't really matter because each LED, unless it changes color, if these were 3 whites and 2 reds, then yeah, you would have to change, and then you would actually have to look at those separately. So yeah, so most of the time you just go off 1. So what I end up usually having to do is around a 330, and I got to order some resistors too. So 330 would be for our normal white lights, and then we need to change this value to 2, and it's saying a 350 for that. which is I have a 360. I don't have anything else. No. So it's going to be these two. All right. So this is a red, so that's one of the 2 volts, and the yellow is the other 2 volts. But even though it said 300, you got to go with the next closest one because it won't always give you a value that a resistor actually has. So you want to go the next size up. So now let's take you and wrap you around a couple times. I wish that was a tighter wrap. I think on the other ones, I'm going to put the resistors on first and then bend them down like that. But we still got plenty of contact. Are we hot? Yes, we are. There's that one. We don't need all that. And then we need a 360. Oh, I think I screwed up. Yes, the 330 goes on. Woo! The higher resistor will go on the lower. The 330s for the white because it uses less. It uses more voltage. All right, that's not a big deal. And like I always do, I take a red marker and mark the bottom of the prongs of the LED so I know which one's positive and negative. Because of that whole thing of you can't tell the lengths when you bend them in different ways. Yeah, because the 330, I forgot. I thought I was doing the resistance on the first, these odd bulbs. I should just solder those two quick, the yellow and this red, and then, yeah, because you can tell I haven't used these that much. And that's basically it. That's it. We got the resistor. Even do that. Get them way off. Let me get rid of some of this too. There we go. This will be our constant on, and that'll be our flasher. See, that's where leaving them up first probably is a better idea because it's so much easier to wrap. And I just like the way this thing bends things because it bends them quite tight. I still see a lot of that. Again, we don't need all that. The less uninsulated wire, the better. All right, there is the yellow. There we go. And you should be able to go on and nothing gets hit. Yay. All right. So that's that one. Well, in the final, might as well do it. These we can just cut short. Because power's just going to come right up into it. Maybe I will bend them a little bit off to the side. We've got plenty of room. I can have a little bit of a peak there. No, maybe we'll. Well, no, that's fine. We got plenty of space in here. Ain't nothing going on. There's no arms or it's just a hollow cavity. It would have made a better junction area, but you would have to send wires up to get junction. So that's that. Now I can start just attaching wires, which is simple. All right. That's that. All three of those, and that's done. So I can just go and start attaching wires, but I'm not going to bore you with that. That's pretty simple. Like I said, I'm just going to do my red and black, and then I think yellow and blue. Well, I'm going to use the blue, I think, for the negative. We'll just bring them out to, a little good tail. Don't need much because this isn't big. That way we can tie them all together there. Because even on these flashers, the negatives could all get tied to here because it's really just one loop. Say we come out of one with the yellow, that yellow will come in here or whatever, wherever I decide to put the flashboard, which I think I'll put it in the base because that's the only thing that gives me the most room. Unless I put it up in here and then send that wire down and have it grab power off of this. I could do that. Because that little board would probably fit in here. Okay, we got all the wirings in on these little extensions. The blue and the yellow are for the nav lights, for the flashing, and the black and red are for the steady on. Already tested this one. Got the flashboard. It looks like the hot glue finally cooled down, but got that glued on the bottom half of the main dish. And on the main dish we have, since everything up here is permanent power, we'll have to tail off two jumpers to go to that board. But this goes down, which will go into this junction here, and this will go out, of course, to the cargo, or we're going to do the habitat pod. But we can actually start gluing these together because I already tested this, so everything's working. So yeah, we can actually close these up. And one nice thing they did, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but making a little hollow in the way these are designed, you don't even have to drill a hole because it leaves a little pocket for your wires to come out. I've seen a lot of build series on this, and people have issues with the overlap. This one doesn't seem too bad, the joints so far. I mean, just I only dry fitted a couple things, but like this and one of these, but it actually seems to be okay. All right, everything's lined up. There we go. Those aren't being pinched. Oh, I forgot to check to see what pegs. Yeah, it does have a peg way out here. I like to get at least the locating pins with the thicker glues. That gives them time to melt. All right. Ow. Yeah, I mean the gapping's not really bad. I don't think. I've seen a lot worse. Unless this is a revamped version. I know it is pretty much a revamped version with the old school box. I like that. That's kind of neat. But so far, I'm having a pretty decent go with it. Actually, let's start at this corner. Only is I think this is one that this popped off the sprue, so we got a pretty good chunk there. We got to clean up. Let's make sure all these ridges are aligned. Yeah, it's looking not too bad, to be honest. We got, some sanding to do, but it's really not that bad. This side has a little bit of a. I think we're good on this side. Yeah, this side we're good, but we do have a little overhang there, but that's an easy thing to sand. But my biggest concern was out here because I did see, and they were right. I did see what they had to deal with, but I think I'm gonna come out pretty clean. It's getting a little bit of alignment there. I might not even have to putty. It might be more of a sanding job, except for that chunk taken out of there. That's not a problem. There we go. Get this one done. Well, let's do a test on this one too. All right, we have this top lights working, and there's the green marker. And I went and marked out here which color this is. I gotta remember how to mark it so I know when I'm playing. Well, I guess I could power it up because once I connect all that, there's just a way I want them in here. It looks like they have the red towards the front, like this is the front of the station, and they come out in threes. It looks like they have the red in the front, the yellow, and then the green. And then the hangar bay is just tilted, not center. It's just kind of this way. It's not even in between the two extensions. Let me show you. We can just go off the picture off the box. Yeah, this is the front. Let's say that's facing forward. This would be the red, the green, and the yellow. And they have the hangar bay just off. It's not directly in between the two. and that is true to the filming miniature. It's not like this. It's kind of even like that. So we'll do that. It's a little weird that it's off like that. Like I said here's our input, which we have a plus and a minus, and then the plus is in the center for the output, and then you have L1 and L2, and that's where it flashes in between. So blue is our negative, so we'll just choose one, and I'll go with L1. Doesn't really matter. And then the yellow will go to the positive. Get rid of some extra. What's going on here? There we go. Give it a tug. Looks good. And I think tweezers are going to be in hand for this. Well, these little screwdrivers are nice because it's got the swivel thing, so you can just sit there and spin. All right, pull again. Yep, we're in there now. And then we can stick that down there. But we need to drill this a little bigger because at first I was just thinking of doing just only 2 wires down. I think if we just go a size up from this one, which would be this one, it'll give us a little extra. Definitely twisting them makes them a little wider than if I would have singularly put them down, because then they can just wind around. You know, them being twisted gives them, you know, it just makes it, that curve just gives it, makes it feel like it wants to, it's a little wider than they are normally would be. So, but I like them twisted together because then things aren't all over the place. Like this was 4 wires just going all over the place. All right, I think that should work. Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So I think I'm safe to glue this on. But if I do that, I gotta make sure which direction because I want all the things to go. This is the front. They're saying so we can go off of this right here. And that should throw those almost on those. Yeah, it kind of does. Here's the other thing. We got to make sure we're not like that either. Yeah, that's the other thing. We got to make sure we're level. Putting it down too hard will knock it out of shape. This is always fun. We got to look at how it is this way and also twist way. I think that's close as we're gonna get without like a real jig. Let's just let that sit. Okay, now with the rest of these, I need to mark these too. Alright, green. We don't need to mark the yellow. We're red. And of course, then we know that's yellow. It's marked on the one side. That's why they put those little angles. I think we can hit these two first. We do like that. And like that. And then we get them lined up. This is going to hold probably the most weight because they're hanging off of this point. So I'm going to use this heavier Tamiya glue. There we go. We're going to want to get this third one in there so it gets them all lined up much better before this glue starts to cure. I'd feel better if we had something holding that. This is one of my stronger clips, but I have a feeling we're going to have a problem right here. What can we do here? Because then I know those spools are the same size. So those pods are level. And while we're sitting here, I'm going to put a little extra thin in here. Seep in there and really cure everything up. I think we should let these, at least this, before we start messing with this. And right now it's taking up workspace. We'll let this cure for a little bit. All right, last night I let it run, put everything on. The flashers are working. And so I just put these on just to see what they look like. One thing, same manufacturer, 5 mil warm white is not exactly looking like the 3 mil warm white. It's a lot warmer. So that's weird. Usually you get, some difference between manufacturers, and you gotta watch because there's different grades of warmth. But you think they would have these matched. So that's interesting. But I'm okay with it. Especially with these, they're just going to be little, tiny little windows. It's just really prevalent now. And I'm going to actually do this pod here like this, even though you're used to seeing it on the series like that, but that's because it was a cargo pod or a power supply pod or anything like that. But when you have humans in it, these pods are actually able to, there's legs on this side where it's not a big dome. This side has the bigger dome. There's actual legs on them so they can sit on the ground. So the habitat pod, since it's going to be sitting on the ground, its furniture is probably all, on the floor. And if they came up to a space station, even though there's no real up and down in space, technically, it would be opposite of the decks on the station. So, and I think there is a picture showing a habitat pod connected because they also show the decks of the habitat pod, and it's this way. So I'm going to do it that way. This is all together. Yeah, I glued these half together, and then I glued all those to the little part that kind of holds the three of these together. And this is really just sitting on top because it's really not glued together until all these two halves sandwiched together. And it's almost like this floats in there. But the locking of this other part has the roundness that goes over these bars. So that'll help lock it in. But yeah, the wires are all connected, so I think what we can do, and I'm just backfeeding it through the pod's power supply. So if I know it's going through that and then going all the way down and controlling everything correctly, with flashboards getting power correctly, we can just really just put in a power extension to bring power down into the hangar bay section. And then actually close this up. And then start working on this hangar bay, which I was looking to see how it's gonna, now this is upside down, but how it really fits. Right, here's the bottom. And you can just pick wherever you want it to be. Because these pegs here are more keeping it from getting out of sync this way. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have the holes on this side. So what you kind of want to do is make sure the hangar door, I'm going to say here, you got a big opening where there's no peg. And you put that there. And that is the floor of the 3D printed hangar bay. And it's really nicely level with that lip. And that's what it should be. So that's what we're going to glue it down to. Now I'm hoping, and what it looks like when you do put the ceiling down, like if I take the ceiling and everything there, it makes the floor flush with the bottom of the door, which would be hitting this rim, which is where it needs to be then. Or does it need to be a little lower? I think it's actually going to be a little lower because the top of that here, now it's the bottom of it's flush here, but that would mean there would be a bump up. So it's not going to be sitting completely down on the ceiling. It's not, there's a little leeway up top, probably for you, hopefully, to be able to fit a little light strip up here. That's what I'm hoping. Even a little cob light strip. But if I can actually put the light strip up here, that would be the best. But then this has a thickness too. You got plenty of room. So as long as this, what I want to make sure is, I'd rather this ceiling be, when you're looking at the station from the outside, rather the ceiling be up here and coming down into the door. It looks like it would be least flush or least higher, and that's okay. It's the floor that we want a nice smooth look. This can be up a little bit, and that's great. I'm hoping they maybe just a high density LED tape that I can just tape right there, and then when I glue this down, I put the two halves together. It's just there, sitting above these lights on the ceiling, which we'll have to mask. But this kit comes with the masks for those. So we'll have to check all that out. And then I also was looking at how this would sit. Do I need to not only, if you look at that, it's not like they just numped it out and printed the door. It's recessed. It's almost like another part was glued to the back of the round part. And the original outside wall has kind of angles to the door opening. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it does. It has little angles like that. So what I think I'm going to do is cut the door right at the last little joint there. So it still looks like there's doors that don't completely open. You know, that's as far as they can accordion together, compact together. So we'll do that. We'll make it, instead of doing the angle cut and the angle cut and completely get rid of them, we'll go right off of that seam there and make it still look like there's a door to the last segment of the door stopped. And that'll give us room for the walls of the interior to be hidden behind. Yep, more than enough. Because you can pretty much glue this right to this extra thickness there. It's almost like they gave you more on this side than they did over on this side, and they did. There's more of an overlap, so it kind of skews your hanger bay. Because unless you do that. Because I was looking at the last segments of the door on each side and how the interior wall is a distance away from it, and it'd be better there, but you run out of that double. So I could always put a piece of styrene there. So that makes me feel good, because I was worried about how this is going to fit, and then I can see how much space it takes too. Really, I was worried about how level this would be, and that's great. If you set that like that and you push that up, that's nice. And I don't know if I bump. Yeah, what's this asking me to do? Is that lift it up? Yeah, it pretty much does. So we're going to have to put a spacer on the bottom to lift it up a little bit. Yeah, because it's sitting. We don't want it. If I glue it flat, it's got this little bit of a dome. It really needs to be like that, which is about a 2 mil piece. I could either print one quick. I wonder if it's about the thickness of the print. So it's probably a 2 millimeter piece, but I probably have a piece of styrene, or I could stack two that I can just glue down. And then we can epoxy too, because this is 3D printed, so it won't work with regular glue. But we'll get it all painted up first and decaled, and then put it in here. And it looks like, yeah, how are we going to do this? All this minus this piece could be put together and painted as a whole, even with this. Because we're going to then mask the windows on there, mask the windows on these cones, and then hit it with a black because we do have some light bleeding. And when it's really dark, you can see some areas where it's glowing from this light bulb, or even when these flash. It's hard now, but when it was pitch black in the room, you could see it. But so we're gonna want to hit it with a black. These I gotta get hit with a black anyway because they're clear. I guess what we could do is paint this up and then fix the seams. And that's the only thing we'll have to fix the seams kind of afterwards. This will fix the seams before we paint it. This one we'll have to do afterwards, but we can at least get a couple coats otherwise on. That way all we have to do is really concentrate here, and since I'm using craft acrylic, it's a much easier paint to touch up. Because then we can actually put it together. No, because we're going to have the feed that needs to come down in here. I think it's just going to feed one little LED strip. That's the only light that needs that. That'll light anything in this. And then a power going, well, actually this way. We'll have to actually attach the light and then close this. And do all that and then close it, and then we'll have to touch it up while it's on here, which ain't horrible. I'm just trying to avoid because, this will be open. I mean, you could probably stuff some stuff in there. A little paper towel or something. All right. So, first things first is cleaning up those wires and soldering them and making them permanent.